a little, like a 1-year-old.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I think Rosemary and Melanie are in the area, and I said, "Come on by." So I got my door open. So I might bring Rosie to the show today at some point. We'll see.
Sweet.
She turns 1 next weekend, so pretty exciting.
Nice. That is awesome. That's a good time too. Fun.
Yeah, man, it's great. She's fun. She's smart. She loves looking for things, opening things up and looking in there and shutting it. And then, she's always forever opening things and looking inside. I don't know what she's looking for, but then we'll put like her pacifier or like a little cookie in all these little areas where she explores. It's funny.
That's cool. We had I don't know, I think I told you guys, but we got a new puppy, which was eye-opening for us. We didn't anticipate the level of care and attention, but speaking of that, we've been trying in training, that she has like puzzles. I didn't even know this stuff exists, but so for a puppy, there's like a puzzle that you get, and you put treats in all these different ways, and they have to figure out how to move the puzzle around and all this to get to a treat.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, man, it's come a long way from you just put it outside.
What kind of dog did you get?
It's a golden doodle. Micro golden doodle, so it'll be about 15 pounds, but she's sweet, kind-hearted, wants to please us, but she's got some separation anxiety, so we're having to change our lifestyle a little bit for now.
Is a golden doodle it kind of looks like a small poodle, maybe? Or
yeah, a poodle with longer hair, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of dog that my niece just got. I think that's a real popular breed these days, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any. Well, I mean, I can complain, but overall, we don't have any complaints. Good dog, good breed so far. Very sweet, wants to play, kind-hearted. So it's just been a change for us. I'm not a dog person, so finding my way through that.
You are now, Keith.
Yeah, no doubt.
Do you crate the dog at night when you're sleeping? Does the dog go in a crate?
She does. She goes in a crate all night and sleeps all night. Has pretty much since we got her, since a couple of weeks after we got her. She slept all night, trained, everything's fine. She doesn't want to go in her crate during the day or anything else. Stuff like we want to go out to eat or something like that. She doesn't want to go in her crate. We don't want to just let her run everywhere in the house and chew up phone cord. So that's our predicament.
That's awesome. What's the dog's name?
Presley.
There you go.
Yeah, Presley. She has I don't know, but Austin, my son's dog, he has a dog named Elvis. And so then she's Presley. And so we have an Elvis and a Presley, and then
Priscilla
and a Gracie. So kind of the Graceland. So we just kind of followed the theme a little bit.
We had a Gracie years ago. Where is Austin now? Remind me where he is living.
He's in Chattanooga.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Is he working with you still, or what's he doing now?
He doesn't work with us in a formal way, but I work with him every day because we are doing some stuff with the company that he works for. So we're doing some marketing for their clients, and we're working on some product development for some lines of products that we're coming out with. So he works for a company that has a kind of a unique formula. It's called SENS technology, a patent technology that is largely in the CBD industry. So they're taking large scale production of CBD that were so if you wanted to be a drink, if you were Coca-Cola and you wanted to have CBD infused drink, you would have to bring in a lot of equipment and all of that to infuse. His company has a technology that takes this kind of crude oil CBD and makes it water soluble as an ingredient. So then they can just ship that ingredient to large scale providers, and they can put it right into their production line without having to retool and all that. So it's kind of it's kind of a chemistry type thing. But he's got a lot of clients that are coming to him for those products, that CBD type products, hemp type products that need marketing as well. So we're working with them on some co-op type campaigns and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun, unique industry, but a huge industry.
It's a huge industry. Mainly drinks, or would it be cookies, candy, food stuffs?
Yeah,
all different types of
they're
edibles.
They're doing all of that type of stuff as well, but particularly taking, this really thick type. And it's not just, they're doing some stuff with antibiotics and things like that. It's not just in CBD, but because of their technology, but it just takes this the kind of their slogan is being able to that oil does mix with water, because it just takes a thick type oil and makes it water soluble, so it lends itself to drinks more than it would, say, a baked good.
Yeah, right.
In that regard. But they're doing a lot of gummies and things like that where it applies as well.
That's pretty cool. That's exciting, man.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. It's there's some interesting characters that we get to work with in the industry too. So a lot of products that are out there.
Yeah. Once I retire, I could be like a tester, possibly, if they need, like, somebody to check their products out, do a little test. Just call me in a little while.
Yeah, I don't need anybody coming after my job, John.
Okay.
John can't retire. He's too valuable to the town. So no retirement, funny. John.
All right. Well, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. In that area. So let's get started. You guys that are watching us, this is Maine and Mulberry's Public Policy, where we discuss Collierville, Tennessee, the ins and outs, the ups, the downs, the bad, the ugly, the fun, the growth, the challenges, all behind the scenes. If you're looking for the real information, this is where you will find it every other Thursday. And we do that by bringing the fact finders themselves, the wealth of all knowledge, Vice Mayor Maureen Fraser and Town Economic Development Director John Duncan. So thanks, guys, for being here.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. It's always fun.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith.
Yeah, that's one thing. It is fun. We've had fun. We've been doing this for several years now, and have taken different roads and paths and things. A lot of things have happened in the town, from going through a couple of election cycles and COVID and a new town administrator. So we've been kind of following through a lot of that, and as the town grows. And so we talk a lot about growth, which is something that's also talked a lot about on social media. People are very opinionated about what comes to Collierville and what doesn't come to Collierville, and what flowers are growing in someone else's yard. And so we try to address all of those things here on the show. But let's start off with Maureen. You want to give us an idea of what's happening with the board and Mayor of Alderman, then we'll jump over to John.
Sure. We're still busy working on the budget. We're meeting with each department head every Thursday from about 2 to 5 o'clock. So we'll be talking this afternoon to Parks and Rec, the fire department, and I think we have maybe HR.
Yep.
HR today. So getting the state of the department, what is some of their upcoming concerns, what they're expecting to have happen in the next year, kind of the crystal ball, so we know how to plan the budget. Then once we meet with all the department heads, then we'll get into the down and dirty on all the numbers and the money and what can we fund and what can we not fund. And so we're still in the gathering of the collection and timing. So, but that's fun. We had a big meeting yesterday, which I'm sure Mr. John will help with provide information on, but it was with the new owners that just purchased the carriage crossing. And it was, I was thinking it was going to be a 15-minute meet and greet, but it was about an hour and a half discussion and presentation, and a lot of information that was provided back and forth. So Abigail Warren with the Daily Memphians, she said, Maureen, you couldn't stop smiling. I'm like, I didn't know I couldn't stop smiling. But
yeah, and that's good. I think that I want to hear about all that. Let me circle back to budget a little bit. Tell me where are we in the process, and when does the budget have to be finalized?
The budget has to be approved and in place by July 1.
So everything funding the town at the moment is from last year's budget.
Correct. Right. Correct. We're in last year's budget. We're working on the budget for 23-24 because our budget year is July 1 to June 30.
Gotcha.
So, at this point, the department heads are still working on all their projects, capital projects for 22-23, and then we'll go into 23-24.
Okay. Well, let's take a minute just to because I think we're going to get a lot of views on this show. So take a minute to talk about what are those department heads. So because that kind of funnels into what are the broad buckets that the budget is spent on. So when you say the department heads are coming up with where their capital improvements that request and what funding they need, let's name what are those different departments, just so we know the broad buckets.
Goodness. Okay. So we have human resources. Excuse me.
Okay.
Human resources. John, you're a department head, right? Economic development.
I'm a department of one. Yeah. Army of one.
Yes. Department of one. But a very important department of one. Then we have our Parks and Recreation. We have General Services. General Services is all of the, they have a big job. They take care of all the contracts, the bidding process. They have a huge job. We have the Development Director position and the Development Department. The Development Director is over code enforcement, planning, and engineering.
Okay.
So that's a big job. And then we have Police, Chief Lane, Fire,
Sure.
Chief Selberg. We have IT now, which is a department in itself. And we have the Finance Director, which is Valisa Wells. And am I forgetting anybody?
Where does where does fire fall under? Is that in the services?
That's in there. They have Fire Department, Chief Selberg.
Chiefs. Okay, so fire as well, and so
Library.
And the library. So yes,
library.
we have Lisa Platt.
Yeah, but I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm just trying to think that, if people know how the money's spent, the bulk of that, the bulk of those dollars goes to, if there's one thing that the majority of the dollars in the budget goes to, is that police?
It's public safety, police and fire.
Police and fire. Okay. So the bulk of the tax dollars go into trying to keep us safe, right? And then from there, once all those needs are met, then you start looking at some of the needs of the other departments. So like, John is going to ask for some money from economic development, but if we need police, then the police are probably going to grab those funds because we need more police. And we'll say, John, you got to be a little bit more skinny if there's an issue. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. The police department this year, they've requested additional motorcycle officers, so motorcycles, not necessarily the officers. So we have the officers, but they're wanting additional motorcycles for the officers to serve, to be on. And there's some discussion over, when do we see the motorcycles out? They're a good PR. They definitely are a good PR piece for the police department. They can hide out and they are not as visible as some of the police cars, but a lot of times if it's pouring down rain or it's storming or things, they're not out. So they still need to have a vehicle for that officer as well. So there's needs that each department, they look at what they would like, their wish lists of what they would like to do for their department. And, I'm sure there's a lot of officers that would love to ride a motorcycle, as an alternative of being in a vehicle each and every day. So that's just one of the items that Chief Lane is requesting is additional motorcycles.
Gotcha.
As an example.
Yeah, I can see some of the benefits to motorcycles, and so the general process for people that might have just be joining this for the first time and thinking through it is that the town elects the board of mayor and aldermen. And then each one of the department heads submits what they need for their department from a financial standpoint for a fiscal year. And then the board of mayor and aldermen look through all of that, look at what's projected for tax dollars, look at what's in the funds, and then make decisions on how those dollars are going to be spent. And in my understanding, that's the biggest part of your job as elected officials, right? This budgeting process. I mean, you do a lot of things, but the biggest thing is you got to approve a budget, and you've got to be able to look at that budget, make decisions, understand what's needed versus what's a want. I'm sure, John's going to ask for the world, but is it needed? Is it, for it or not? And make those type of determinations by talking with them and coming up with what that budget is for the town. And then once that budget is set, you've got, town administrator, everyone is playing into operating that and making sure that it's spent according to the way that it's supposed to. But that's the biggest thing you guys do, right?
It is. I mean, we're the policy makers. If there's any ordinances that need to be changed and things like that, that's the main thing. But our community, the way our town charter is set up, that the budget is the responsibility of the board of mayor aldermen along with the town administrator. So
Gotcha.
if you were an elected official in Germantown, that budget belongs to the mayor. So the mayor has a finance committee and they put together the budget. So it's different no matter where you live. But in Collierville, we have the experts of each department head, because each department head, like John, fire, police, finance, library, that's their expertise. They're trained in that. They know what they need in their division. We are not, as elected officials, we don't get into the nitty gritty in each of the departments. So we have to have experts in their department to tell us what's going on, and then we take that information from there. So Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, you've got system matter experts that you've got. I mean, you're not a chief of police, so you have to rely on that, and you are involved in making those hiring decisions to make sure that the chief of police is competent and in alignment with what we're trying to do. From your standpoint, John, being on the other side of that fence, how is that process for you of submitting and request? And is it a pretty easy process, or do they put you through the ringer? How does that go for putting requests out in front of the board? Do you have to sell them a lot, or what happens there?
Well, I'm a little different. I'm under administration. That's the department that I'm under, and I am the director of economic development, which is a department of one. I'm a little unique when it comes to funding and finances in that every time we close a pilot, a payment in lieu of tax, the company that's going to receive these tax breaks has to pay a closing fee or a closing cost of 2% of the benefit they're going to receive. So there's a considerable amount of money in an account that is controlled by the IDB. And that money is what I utilize for marketing, advertising, travel, things like that, entertainment. My salary and benefits fall under the town, but everything else that I do, lunch, dinner, entertainment, travel, marketing, advertising, trade associations, software I might need, all of that is funded through the account that has built up to a pretty large number over the years because of all the pilot deals we have closed. So I don't really go before the mayor and board to talk about my department or talk about my financial needs. I go before the mayor and board in other ways when I'm presenting opportunities for the community and kind of talk about markets and trends and benchmarking and things like that. So I'm a little different than the police chief, fire chief, people like that.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a little not an unfair question to get to the result that I was looking for from a department head, and so but that it's fair enough. But in a traditional stance, is the chief is going to put his plan together after he consults with everybody, chief of police. Is he going to come and stand in front of the BMA and say, this is what I need all the money for, this is what I'm doing? Do they present? I'm just trying to get an idea of what this process is.
When I say we have a work session like this afternoon at 2:00, usually there'll be 3 or 4 department heads that will come. They have 30 minutes, basically, is what we've given them this year. Sometimes if there's a newer elected official that comes on the board that has not done a budget before, we may give them each an hour just to give more background and more information. But since the current board of mayor and aldermen has been there for a little while together as a group, 30 minutes is usually what we give them. Sometimes they go over a little bit, but yes, they'll usually have some PowerPoint slides, some handouts for us, and it's just a conversation in the conference room up at town hall. Sometimes all the other department heads sit in the room and listen around the perimeter of the table where we sit. So, so they'll tell us, kind of what's on their mind, what keeps them up at night, what they see happening in their department, any information that they feel would help us with the budget.
And I kind of feel like it's a state of the union that they present. And part of that is, here's what I will require to continue to do what I do. And I think it's sprinkled with what's coming next, and that is requests for money, requests for budget funds, et cetera, et cetera. So this is sort of like the ask, the presentation before the ask. Is that accurate, Maureen?
It is, and it's it's at our level, and it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of questions back and forth.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so we know that budgeting is a big piece of what board of mayor and aldermen do, and I know you guys do a lot of things. But let me ask a question, and this might be a kind of an odd question because I know you do a lot of things, but what doesn't the BMA do? And the reason I ask that is because I see a lot of things that are out there on social media, and I see a lot of a lot of stuff that they're appealing to the BMA that this business should go in Carriage Crossing instead of going over here, and this that needs to be addressed. Why would we allow this or that type of stuff? Where is there alignment between just what a general town runs and what is not something that the BMA would generally be involved in?
Well, the main thing is we're not involved in personnel issues with the town. We appoint the department heads, and we have a HR director. But I've had people that, sometimes may call me and say, hey, so-and-so is applying for a position. Can you make sure they get hired? That's something I can't get involved in. Now, if they want to put my name down as a reference, and HR then reaches out to me for, some information, then I'm happy to help in that way. Most of us try to help in any way that we can, but some of it is not out of our day-to-day responsibility. Keith, I think you're referring to some social media conversation, and we have code enforcement, and code enforcement officers work under the Department of Development, and they have their job. And I was driving up by Hellier Road. I saw a building that had been painted white, and my reaction was, oh my gosh, that's so bright. But it's not like the elected officials are the ones that went to that owner and did a stop work order. That is the job of the code enforcement officers. So most of the time, they don't go out looking for trouble unless someone has called. And I'll just say that in general. Byhalia Road's a major road. They may have seen it. The officers may have been out. They each have their own little area that they're responsible for, a district within the town of Collierville, and help each other out. So, unfortunately, there's some citizens and maybe people that don't live in Collierville that want to constantly bash the Board of Mayor and Aldermen over decisions that we made. And a lot of times it's not our decision. Yes, we hired the department head, but they train their employees to do their job. And that employee or whoever that was just doing their job. And, a lot of people, we're supposed to be the Board of Mayor and Aldermen that makes the policy and works on the budget. But because we all live in Collierville, we're all around, we're all involved in different groups within Collierville. A lot of times we get information from other people like, hey, Maureen, what's going on here? Can you check on this for me? And yes, we're always willing to help, but usually that goes through the town administrator. And if we have someone contacts us, then we contact the town administrator, and then she gets with the appropriate department head to do the research or to find the answers that we're looking for. Is
Gotcha.
that kind of what you were asking?
Well, and also, we've talked about this on the show before. We've got something that's called the 2040 plan, which is really a roadmap for growth, roadmap for development in this community as types of products, what it needs to look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think part of the mayor and alderman's job is to make sure that book, that rule book, if you will, is adhered to. And a lot of the decisions they make revolve around, does this comply? Is this something that is appropriate per the 2040 plan? I've heard it referred to as the Bible before, and I understand that. So I think that's part of what Maureen and the other aldermen and the mayor do, is make sure that we're sticking to the roadmap that we've outlined for this community.
And, we have, there's another discussion going on now with the proposal for Chick-fil-A. And I've said it before, I haven't seen the plans at all. The area that Chick-fil-A wants to go is zoned commercial in the 2040 plan, which is the guideline. It's the living and breathing document. So people will say, you can't let them go there. Well, that if that property owner owns land and is zoned commercial, it's going to be developed commercial unless that property owner comes to the town and says, I would like to have that rezoned to residential, a down zone, whatever it may be. But it's not, if they have that right that goes with their property, it's not just Maureen Fraser that can say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. So then so let's talk about that in two ways. So does the BMA do the zoning?
The zoning was done many years ago, long before I was ever elected.
Yeah, but did a BMA do that? I mean, is it the responsibility of BMA to zone the town?
Sure. At some point, I'm sure the elected officials, along with the planning department, and they did come up with the zoning map of Collierville. Yes.
Okay. So, and I would assume that process is an educated process as well, where you've got experts that are looking at the zoning, looking at the balance of the town, looking at what's coming where, and they're making recommendations to the BMA. So you guys are not necessarily experts in zoning, right? Just like the police chief says, this is what we need. We need some motorcycles. You're not an expert in policing. You're not an expert in should this be zone commercial or residential or 1A or 4624B, whatever it is. You're looking at data and everything that's been presented to you from an expert, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And so also there's some communication, and we talked about it as well, just to clarify that. So if something is zoned commercial, then is it the BMA's responsibility to determine what commercial comes there? So if you've got a commercial plot and it's Chick-fil-A or Burger King, is it the BMA's responsibility to determine whether that's a Chick-fil-A or a Burger King that goes there?
It is not. It is not our, we have things we look at. Does it comply with the guidelines and the rules? I mean, there's a lot of conditions with any development. Is it safe? Is that the appropriate location, the setbacks, the landscaping, the colors? I mean, there's so many boards and commissions that look at that. But to the answer of your question, no, I can't say whether I want a Burger King or a Chick-fil-A. That's not up to me. It's up to that person that wants to develop that property, what they want to put on that property.
And also to show you how important zoning is, if you want to change the zoning from what it is to what you might want it to be or something other than what it's already zoned for, that's a big deal. And that they don't take that lightly. And it can be somewhat of a challenge to get zoning changed. So the town takes zoning, it's very important, and it's hard to change it, but it has been changed. But all of that is strategic, and there's a process there as well. So zoning is very important, and we adhere to it, and we take it serious for sure.
Well, and because there's an ethical and a legal precedent there, right? So if I buy property based off of how it is zoned, it would, and then all of a sudden the town were to just change that zoning, then without just put it out from under the person that bought the property and spent their hard-earned money to do that, there's an ethical and a legal issue there, right?
Very much so, yes.
Right.
Yes. And we've seen that happen in some of the neighboring communities to Collierville. Yes.
Yeah. And so then what happens there is it becomes possibly lawsuit, but also just no one wants to come to Collierville because they're like, if I'm going to buy this, I could buy this land and be planning to put a grocery store there. And all of a sudden I'm looking at a rezoning because I can't get enough parking and I've wasted my money because the town changed the rules.
But usually, but the towns typically zoning changes at the request of the landowner or the
right.
potential landowner. The town's just not going to change the zoning. The zoning is going to change if the person that's buying it or wants to buy it requests that it's changed because they want to do X, Y, Z there instead of A, B, C. Right, Maureen?
Right.
That's how
That's
typically
true.
it works. Yeah.
An example, maybe an easier example is like when the zoning maps were established and put into place. There's the Byhalia Road corridor, and there was a lot of not commercial but office space that's all up and down Byhalia Road. Well, some of those property owners will present to the town. They want to have it, we call it down zone. Most of the time they can't go to industrial or commercial, but they may be able to justify the fact that, look, there's too much office space. We have corporate headquarters going up in Schilling Farms, and that's a better location. So I have this office zoning and I want to change it to residential. Can I do that? And that's usually kind of what you see more so. But then when you look at that, then you've got to look at the buffers between the properties, what's next to it, because when this was all planned out, we're not going to put smokestacks next to houses.
Right.
As an example, and John, we talk about smokestacks. So there's so much that goes into it, but that's kind of what is sometimes a property owner will request a rezoning. And that's probably been the most common recently, has been from an office user that wants to change to residential. But,
yeah. And that's and some of that is even public driven, right? Because you want to put something there, you put out the plans, and then the public, gives a whole lot of feedback, and then you're trying to adjust your zoning to accommodate something that won't piss everybody off that you're trying to build. I see some of that too. So these zoning requests at the request of the development can somewhat be driven by the public, and they're trying to adapt. And so I've seen that in several instances as well. And again, we're just trying to give everybody the facts and let people know what's going on behind the scenes, because it's one thing to say, oh, it's ridiculous that the town would do this. Okay, well, why don't you think about all the things that have to happen and think about somebody spent money here. You've got zoning. This is a 2040 plan. This isn't even the responsibility of the BMA. There's a whole lot of things in the background. And what we encourage here is to go find out all those things. but and before just making a declaration with a lack of information. Everybody needs as much information as they can to make the assertions that they're making. So I just wanted to highlight some of that and talk through that. And we could probably continue having this conversation for 4 hours. But I think, I'm going to go to John for economic development and find out what this Cooper Hawks thing is. I think we'll talk about Carriage Crossing some, but also one of the things that I see a lot of, and we talk about this off air some. I think everybody that talks about this. It was a big topic during the last election. So I'm just going to give you the opportunity. I'm going to put you on the spot maybe a little bit, but maybe not. You're a politician. You can deal with it. But I see it on social. I see it, and it's horrible for the town when this stuff starts going out on social. But there's this thing that says that the town officials are lining their pockets. What is happening with the town? Why do I keep hearing that? And is there anything is there any shred of anything going on? I mean, how do you benefit by, what some of this legislation is, and why are people saying this, Maureen?
I think I've been saved by the train going by, but
yeah.
It is very. I'm not going to get tears in my eyes, but there's no truth to that at all. Why people say it, I have no idea. I have never seen anything going on within the town officials, that there's any sort of, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. I was in a meeting early on with some elected officials from the city of Memphis and Shelby County, and I did witness a little bit of that, more so if I'll support this proposal, if you'll support this proposal. It wasn't exchanging of any funds or money, but that doesn't even happen in Collierville at all. We're all independent thinkers. We all have different spheres of influence, different people we speak with, and different backgrounds. And I don't know why people say that, Keith. It is very hurtful. We all work hard for the town because we love the town. And I think, unfortunately, there's some people that, and you don't know whether they live in Collierville, they don't live in Collierville, and I don't know where they're getting it. I would love for them to contact me and talk to me, and I can have a conversation, because education's the key. And I've never seen it. No one has ever offered me or said anything about, here, I'll give you this money if you vote my way. That has never happened.
So that would be like a more direct form of corruption, I guess. It seems to me more that they may be saying, if you make a zoning decision like this, it's better for you in your other career, so that you may be voting some way because, and any of them, not just you, but anybody could be voting some way because in their other career, that's in their best interest.
And that may be what they're thinking. I don't know, but I've never, as a real estate professional, I have made a decision, me personally, that I don't work for any specific builder. So I will be happy if I have clients that want to look at a home that's built by Magnolia Homes or any, whomever the builder may be. I will work for all the builders, but I don't. I'm not going to sit in one subdivision. That's just my personal decision that I made early on. You have to be as fair to every applicant as you can possibly be. And I'm one vote. So my decision is not, you need 4 votes to get anything to pass. So if one of us, and we all come from different backgrounds. So, maybe they could think that if we're going to zone, there's going to be a new development coming in, and I'm going to vote in favor of that development because it includes residential housing. Well, I may or I may not ever sell anything in there. You don't know. But none of us have a direct connection. But if we vote, and if I was that corrupt, why would I vote for apartments that are zoned and have the rights to build the apartments? Because I wouldn't want people to rent apartments. I would want them to buy a house. So it's just, I don't know why people say that, but it does hurt when you try to do the best you can do each and every day.
Yeah, and it seems like that at a high enough altitude that some of it becomes illogical, right? Because if you're doing things, if you're approving things that would hurt the town, ultimately people aren't going to want to move here. Ultimately, real estate pricing is going to go down. House pricing is going to go down. The things are, if we're not making sure the town is secure, you're not going to sell any houses. It seems like that if an alderman is invested in the town, does work in the town, not work in Memphis or something like that, but is involved in the town, is working in the town, then it's in the collective best interest to do what's best for the town, because it'd be very short-sighted thinking, right? I mean, and so there's no incentive for you to say yes or no to a Chick-fil-A based off of ultimately what is happening around there. The incentive is this the right decision for the town? Is this what the data says? Is this what it's zoned for? All of that. It's not about, do I think that homes are going to sell or not sell in that area because of a Chick-fil-A, right? Those aren't the things necessarily that you're looking at. That's what I've been kind of leading up to here, talking through the zoning and the considerations and all of that type of stuff. It's more than it is that piece of it. Because that piece of it is part of a much of a bigger picture. And so it wouldn't even be wise to make decisions at that small of a level, right? You've got to make decisions based on what's going to happen for the longevity and the values, whether you're a commercial agent or whether you're a residential agent. To me, it seems that way. So people can get frustrated. I've certainly been frustrated with the way that the BMA votes. And I think that some of the things that have been shut down the town have been bad for my business, and some of the things have been good for my business. But I understand because I dig in and I ask the questions, I understand what is going on behind the scenes there a little bit. And so it does, and I think that what I would say to anybody is that if you believe that there is corruption going on, turn it in. If you've got evidence of corruption going on, turn it in. And to whoever you think, turn it into the town, call town administrator, whatever that you think that you want to do if you think that there's corruption going on. But first, I would probably ask some of the questions. All of the board and mayor and aldermen make themselves publicly available. Well, almost all of them make themselves publicly available and show up for all the events. But if you can ask questions, some of these planning sessions that are open to the public, a lot of these things you can dig in and find this information. And if you don't want to find that information, if you don't want to really know what's going on behind the scenes, then shut up. Is really what I would say, and stop going out on social media and saying that our town officials are corrupt, because you are the one that's hurting this town, not the town officials in that scenario. So I've said my pet peeve. So it's very frustrating. But anyway, and I know you guys are going to let me say that and not chime in because you've got more of a vested interest with the public and your jobs and that kind of stuff. I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but I don't have a problem saying it. This hurts the town. This hurts the town. Those type of threads, that type of social media hurts the town. So if you want the town to get better, shut up. All right. So, John, let's go to economic development.
But the same people that are saying that there's corruption and lining of pockets are also the same people that are saying that Collierville is turning into Cordova. Nothing against Cordova, but talking about Collierville is falling down and going low and not nice anymore, and I'm moving out, and it's a terrible place. And I hear that and I see that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because Publix grocery store told me on more than one occasion, of all the markets they have looked at for stores and development, in their opinion, and these are real estate experts, these are people that look at communities for growth and investment, they said straight up, Collierville is one of the nicest communities they have ever seen. It's well organized, it's planned, it's safe, it's beautiful. They loved Collierville.
Yeah.
Well, why did they put a store here? Well, some things changed, but I'm just telling you what they told me, and I don't think they were blowing smoke. They were sincere. Same with the guys that just bought Carriage Crossing and spent $25 million to invest in our community. They love Collierville. They say it's one of the nicest communities they've ever seen. So all this cutting down the community from people, it doesn't come from a direction of knowledge, and it's not strategic, and it's not well-founded. It's just the crazy banging on the computer for whatever reason. I don't really understand it. But you're right, Keith, it does hurt the town. And what I lean on and what I pivot and look at is what Publix said and what the guys that just bought Carriage Crossing said, and what I know and what I see. And that's what Collierville is. It is one of the nicest communities around, period.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If you look at the big picture, and it's reinforcing as well what you're saying. I'm not saying that everything the town does is right. Overall, the town is moving in a positive direction. I don't know how anyone can refute that. But certainly, I've had problems with the directions that the town has taken and things like that too. But I do my homework. What I'm saying is that if you're not willing to do your homework, if you're not willing to find out what's really going on, look at the data, reach out to John or Maureen or someone else, then stop going on a public forum and punching down on the town. That's what I'm saying to do. If you want to do it in the proper way, because when you do it in a public way, now we have people that are looking to move here. We have people that are looking to put their kids in school here. We have people that are like Publix that are looking to come to town here. And we're saying you shouldn't come to town here because our officials are corrupt. That's what we're saying in a public way. And it doesn't serve your purpose to do that. And so if you're going to make a claim like that, and you're going to say that an individual is corrupt, back it up with some evidence, look at some data. If you're going to say that this development follows code or doesn't look good or whatever, find out what the code is before you say. I mean, there's readily available information out there. But when you just go out and say these things and kind of spew some of these things, then you're damaging the town. You're making it harder for the town to grow and to grow in the right directions. You're not making it easier, and your complaints are not going to do anything. But if you have an issue, do something about it. I don't think anybody's saying, if you think that there is corruption or you think that there is some bad actors or whatever, then go through the right channels. And once you've done that and you got the information, by all means, do whatever you think you're trying to do. I'm not trying to muzzle anyone or try to hide anything that the town is doing. I'm saying that if you're not willing to do your homework, then you have no business talking about it, because the information is too easy to be right there in front of it. If you can't drive 70 miles an hour and say you're not speeding if you didn't look at the sign. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got to know what the construct and the rules are before you know whether something's been breached or not. And so, you just do your homework. And it's very frustrating. Some of the things I've seen on social media are very, very frustrating. I'm just, I'm kind of on a high horse, but anyway, so let's go to, but it's just frustrating. I've got a business in town that I need to succeed, and that they're damaging it. Anyway, so John, tell me what Cooper's Hawk is you've got in your name, John.
Well, Cooper's Hawk is a restaurant wine facility where they have a wine club within the restaurant that you can join. Every time you go to dinner there, you can draw wine from your little wine cellar you have there. Cooper's Hawk has great food, but they also have wine tasting events. But it's a restaurant, and it's one of the restaurants that is part of the development that the folks that just acquired Carriage Crossing have in one of their other developments. So people ask me, well, what's going to come to Carriage Crossing now? Who are these people? What's going to happen? I've already seen restaurants named on social media that people are saying this is coming to Carriage Crossing because of this new ownership. And I'm like, I don't know where you heard that or got that, but that's interesting. But if you want to maybe sort of kind of know what might be coming to Carriage Crossing based on who this new ownership group is, well, just pivot and look at the types of end users and restaurants that are at their other locations in Chicagoland and in St. Louis. And Cooper's Hawk is a great restaurant that they have at their Burr Ridge Village Center. So when I look at their portfolios and who is at their properties, that can give you a pretty good indication of who might end up in Collierville. And it's Edwards Realty Company out of Orland Park, Illinois. So Google that, check them out, and that'll give you an idea of the potential direction that Carriage Crossing is going to take now that this group has spent $25 million to acquire it. And what's interesting is if they were going to build Carriage Crossing today, it would cost them about $350 a square foot to do that. They have acquired Carriage Crossing for $50 a square foot.
Yeah,
and they have a track record of revitalization, rebranding, rejuvenation of tired, old, underperforming retail centers, turning them around and setting them on a new path. And that is their goal for Carriage Crossing.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, Carriage Crossing, the entire facility has been sold. It's been sold for $25 million. And John is telling us about some of the potential plans that they could have by looking at some of the other developments that they've acquired. And Cooper's Hawk, I guess, is a food establishment.
It's a restaurant. It's a
restaurant.
high-end restaurant with a pretty dynamic wine component to it.
So do we know if that's for sure coming, or you're just saying, hey, look, it could be?
I'm just saying, if you want to speculate, well, I help you make your speculation a little more accurate versus, so I saw somebody say Chewy's Mexican restaurant's coming. I'm like, okay, I don't know where you got that, but okay, I hope they come. If you want to maybe sort of kind of know what could happen at Carriage, look at what has happened at this company's other centers throughout the country. That would give you a indication of who specifically might come or the types of establishments that might come. And Cooper's Hawk's one of the ones that are originally, and these guys said Carriage Crossing is very much like their Burr Ridge, Illinois center. It's an outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah.
Look at Burr Ridge, Illinois. I'm looking at right now. There's Cooper's Hawk. There's Lifetime Fitness. There's a Topaz Cafe. There's a Kohler Spa. There's a restaurant called the Hampton Social, and that center looks very nice. These guys want to create districts within Carriage Crossing. You may be a medical district, chiropractor, doctor, dentist, a professional district, a retail district, a restaurant district. Kind of create, a village, if you will, of different districts, and within the districts, specific products that are like-minded and like businesses within those different districts. That's one of the things they talked about. They're also big on community involvement and community engagement. So they talked a lot about events and concerts and food trucks and, food days and tastings and all these sorts of things that are fun and will bring people to the center and create sort of a gathering place for the community. And that's sort of their kind of overarching aspiration, is to have a updated, upgraded district organized center that's going to bring people there.
That's exciting. I think something has needed to happen there for a long time, and now to have movement there shows that the economy is coming back a little bit too. I think it shows something at a bigger level from a trend standpoint, but also just saying that, hey, here's a group that's found some answers. These type of retail establishments nationwide are struggling, and here's a group that has found a formula that tends to work a little better, and now they're here, and we're going to see some building out. What type of time frame do you think we're looking at before we start seeing changes at Carriage Crossing?
That's a great question. They just closed on this, I think, on Wednesday, and that question was asked. In fact, Maureen was in the meeting here yesterday, and I'll ask her to give her opinion of the meeting in a minute. But hey, what's going to happen first? And I think there's some things around cleanup and landscaping and irrigation systems and lighting that need to be fixed right off the bat. It's kind of like a house that was abandoned, and okay, somebody needs to cut the grass, trim the hedges, paint the shutters. I mean, that kind of stuff initially, as they try to figure out how they're going to revitalize it and reorganize the center. Maureen, what did you think of the meeting? What did you think of the guys yesterday that you had a chance to meet and visit with?
Yeah, what I like the most is that they have really studied Collierville. They know what Collierville is and what we want to be, and they see that potential. The main one of the guys that spoke the most, Ramsey was his name. He had a friend. He had visited Collierville 7 to 8 years ago, and he thought it was a great community. And then his friend ended up moving. But when this proposal or some information came across his desk about this potential investment for him and his company to make, he was like, well, I know Collierville, Tennessee. I've been there before. So to me, that was really cool, because he already knew what Collierville was all about, knew about our reputation, and had visited before and knew that it was a great community, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, and their due diligence was impressive. And I was joking that they knew more about Collierville than I did, but that was my way of making a point that these guys, they dove deep. In fact, they even went as far as doing little things like, calling up the current owners or the current leasing team and acting like they were a potential prospect, just to sort of see how things were organized and what they heard from people. And they have talked to a bunch of people. And I've been impressed with these guys' creativity, entrepreneurship, and how deep and wide these guys went when investigating our community. So I think they're not investing $25 million lightly. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. And I would assume some of their first step too is probably going to be meeting with, Firebirds and Sticks and, all of the current tenants and trying to figure out what their goals are and how their business is going, what they can do to help support their businesses. And that might have been even part of some of the due diligence. I'm sure looking at their contracts and leases were, but some of those communications might have been part of it. But so there's a big plan. They're just like the town has a 2040 plan. These guys are investing. They've done a lot of data. They've looked at the demographics. They looked at Collierville spending patterns, Collierville education levels, Collierville home values, foot traffic, what's there, and found comparables in other towns, and have done a whole lot of study and said, this is what we think will work. So that's exciting. And I know a little bit about how that process works. And very rarely when you go to those links, do you fail, right? And because the data usually is the answer. I mean, very most likely when you do that level of investigation and you're repeating a success model, it's going to be successful at some level. I think there's a good probability that what they're doing at Carriage Crossing is going to be successful when I hear stuff like that, when I hear that the homework has been done and the due diligence has been done and that there's comparable cities and things like that. So that's exciting.
Well, and Keith, you're right about, helping your tenants succeed. These guys feel very consultative to me. If there's a struggling brand or somebody needs some help, these guys understand it and they will help and jump in and help their client have a success. I'm not sure that was happening with the previous ownership, but I got the feeling these guys are very consultative, like you said, Keith, and that certainly is going to be part of their game plan as they move forward. How can we help you be successful?
Right. Yeah, you got tenants and some tenants have done pretty well there, even though, everybody looks at the vacancies and that type of stuff, but there are some that are doing pretty well.
I'll give you this data point. It's currently 77% occupied. People running around once again on social media. It's 50%. It's 77% occupied. That's, they want it to be 90 plus 100%, but it's had its challenges, but it's not tumbleweeds and broken glass and boards across doors over there. It still has some vibrancy. These guys are simply going to take it to the next level.
Yeah, and I think some of that is kind of is a little bit of confusion as well, just in the way things are looked at. So if I were to go to Carriage Crossing and say there's 15 different front doors, and so and 7 of them you can go in, so they're 50% full. That's not the way it's looked at, because one of those 15 can be 4 times the amount of square feet as one of the other 14. And so what you're looking at is the total amount of square feet that is occupied.
Yep.
And so when you look at it that way and you look at what's really happening there could be 3 little small vacancies, but then, a huge furniture store. And you're saying, okay, well, let's really look at what the occupancy rate is. I think that's just to help clear people up that may be thinking that, because I could see if you're not in the business, then you say, okay, well, there's this many openings and this many businesses. You think that it is at a different level than it actually is when you start to look at it and how it's actually calculated. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, good show, John. Did you have anything else? I know we stuck on Maureen a little bit, and then I complained for a little while. And so, is it anything else that you wanted to say?
No, it's just the big news is Carriage Crossing, and I think it's going to be exciting. In the meantime, Orgel is getting very close to beginning to move dirt over there at that $77 million investment on Bailey Station between FedEx and Orgel headquarters. So that's exciting. The restaurants there at Schilling, south of Beale, Crumble Cookie. There's some other rumors floating around, but what else might go in there? But that is getting close. I was at Stack's Pancake yesterday, and that light blue color is up. The lights are in there. It's going to be a big place, and there's going to be seating outside. There's going to be patio seating. So I am really excited to see that coming together. And I think they're getting dangerously close to opening up with another high quality restaurant option for our citizens.
Yeah, and I like more. We talk about breakfast options as well. I think it's a good fit there. I'll probably have to wait a few months before I can eat there, because I'm not a big line waiter, and I know what's going to happen is it's going to be around the building for some period of time. Because everybody wants to be there. That's just the way it's going to be. But there hasn't been anything there for a while since Canuckins or whatever. So,
That's
you know,
right.
it's been curious to see what comes there. I think it's the right thing. I think it needs that area being where it is, needed something that's a destination, that's a draw to bring people into that center, I think. Whereas certain things, you know, would have been nice to have there, but are not necessarily people are going to seek out and drive. So I think that whole center is going to be elevated there.
No doubt.
And I'm there a lot for Jim's Place, you know, so it's one of my favorite places to eat. So, I think we've been kind of watching it come along, and so I think it's going to be great. I think that's a good location for them, a good location for them to be in Collierville. I'm excited about Stacks.
Well, and once again, Keith, the same with the guys buying Carriage Crossing. Stacks has done this before. I think this is like their 5th or 6th restaurant. So they've got a formula, they got a success model, and they're going to plug it in here in Collierville. I think they're going to crush it there. But just like the Carriage Crossing guys, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And you guys check out the comments too. We've got a pretty active commenter. You guys are welcome to, everybody is welcome to comment. Talking about a VFW, they do a pancake breakfast too. That's always a cool thing. There's a lot that happens in town. So you guys, you know, feel free to comment. I mean, we've said a lot of things here today. Ask the questions. We talked about trying to seek out the information before you go and speak from an uneducated standpoint. It's as easy as typing something in this chat function and asking us a question. Make a comment on our Facebook, and Maureen, John, we're looking at these things. We're circulating them around. We'll try to answer questions when we're back on next time. So I appreciate the comments that we have from Kay Roberts that's there now, and everybody feel free to chime in. So we want this to be more interactive. It's not a one-way. It doesn't have to be a one-way conversation. These guys will answer your questions. So yeah, appreciate that, John, and the reminder on Stacks. And I think good things are happening. Carriage Crossing's good. We've got a lot of the budget processing is coming in, but from what I understand, the tax dollars look strong. So I think we should be good there. You know, we need to stand on Tennessee to repave those roads on Poplar by the Square. That's for sure. And I'm going to keep pounding that in. I know I've done my homework, so I know that's not a Collierville thing and that's a Tennessee thing. So let's stay on Tennessee to get that done. But Maureen, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we close out?
I would just say that, you know, like you and John and myself, I said, we all are passionate about Collierville. I mean, I want the best for Collierville. And so I'm going to do what I can do to protect Collierville. And so maybe that's why some of those comments are hurtful, because you know that we're working hard to help Collierville and be the best that we can possibly be. And then somebody just says something just, you know, arbitrarily, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing this for? So you have to look at it that all the elected officials, we love Collierville and we want what's best for Collierville and everyone that lives here.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't imagine that position. That's a tough thing. I mean, I've come under fire when we had the magazine so many times, and you know, but being someone that is giving so much time for you know, little dollars just because of, you know, wanting to be involved in those sort of things it's people I think don't quite understand the ramifications. If you're going to feel like if someone came to you and your job and what you were doing and then told you that you were completely corrupt and doing corrupt behavior without anything substantiated, I can imagine that's hateful, you know, I mean, hurtful. It is hateful, but I imagine that it's hurtful, you know, if you went to do that when you're putting a lot of time into it. And Collierville has been through some pretty rough things, you know, with what happened at Kroger and things like that. And Maureen was there. These aldermen were there. They stood up. So you need to watch what we're saying and really be serious and think about some of the things that are being said, whether you are a participant in a group or an admin of a group. So guys, I appreciate your time, and we'll be back week after next.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Keith.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Maureen.
Thanks.